Good evening, everyone. I'm Tory Dunnan. We are here and we're talking about a big topic today with news of the Pfizer vaccine and the new news that they put out about children and the efficacy and the new ages as far as where it is safe for different children and what they're now going to be asking for. So we decided we're going to make this a Facebook Live opportunity where you, the parent, can answer questions. And I have some guests with me. I have Melody Rodriguez, who is a parent who has lots of questions about the vaccine and her children. And we also have Dr. Selena Moore, pediatrician, who's going to really answer your questions about the vaccine and guide you in these decisions and kind of cut through all the mud where we stand now. But first, I want to play a story we put together about the news today and some of the concerns that parents have. Watch this first.
I feel like we just have to wait and see how it goes.
Teresa Beekle is a mom of 3 kids, enjoying a day at the beach as larger decisions loom on the horizon.
We don't know the repercussions, like later on, the long-term effects of the vaccination and how it's going to affect children.
She herself is vaccinated.
I took it because I'm in the medical field and I felt like I had to, working with people all the time.
But like many parents, has a laundry list of questions and concerns when it comes to vaccinating her children for COVID-19.
I feel like it was a lot for me to consider, let alone my children.
Some moms say no matter what decision they make regarding the COVID vaccine and their children, they know that, as is the case with many things during this pandemic, it will become part of mom shaming.
You get judged if you breastfed, you get judged if you didn't breastfeed, you get judged if your kids slept in your bed, you get judged if they slept in their crib, you get judged on everything. So for me, I just feel like, number one, I'm going to do what's right for my family based on the research I do and the research done by people who know more than me.
Melody Rodriguez has 3 kids and wants to know how effective the shot is and what effects children may experience.
I'm just cautiously optimistic. I am pre-registered to get my own vaccine.
Mom Sarah Weinstein is vaccinated herself and follows vaccine information closely.
So if these trials come out where, all the scientific research and data says that, hey, kids are doing well with this and it's very effective, and the CDC says we recommend it, then we will definitely want our girls to get it.
She is concerned about side effects.
Do children get the same side effects, or are they totally just, they feel nothing and nothing I think, that's definitely a big question for me, because I wouldn't want to put my kids through anything terrible.
Tory Dunnan, WPTV News Channel 5.
All right, so as you can tell, lots of questions from parents. So first of all, Dr. Moore, I kind of want to talk to you about the news that came out today. Break that down for everyone who's watching this Facebook Live and what it means kind of moving forward.
Well, there are 2 pieces of news that came out in the past 24, 48 hours, both of them having to do with the Pfizer vaccine and studies in children. The first one was a study that showed between the ages of 12 and 16, 100% efficacy rate of the COVID vaccine, the Pfizer COVID vaccine. And we can discuss that a little bit afterwards. And the other one was the Pfizer COVID vaccine being opened up for 6 months and older in trials, which is very, very exciting.
All right, so some of the news about 12 to the 15 age range, we really know that it's been 16 and above, correct?
Correct.
So far that have been eligible for the Pfizer vaccine. Do you think that number will quickly change to 12 and up, or they're going to have to apply for this emergency use authorization and kind of see where it goes?
Well, the emergency use authorization is every single COVID vaccine on the market is going through there. So it will be under that same emergency use authorization. I do anticipate the vaccines to be able to go out to children as young as 12. And I'm very interested in seeing what happens in the younger patient population. So we'll be probably dividing up the vaccine age ranges from 6 months to about 30 months or 2.5 years, and then 2.5 years to about 5, and then the 5 to 12, 12 to 16, and 16 and up is more or less where they've been drawing the lines in terms of age. And the main question will be, what dose are we going to be giving dependent on age. Most vaccines, pediatric doses, are about half of the adult doses, but not necessarily all of them. The flu vaccine is the same for a 5-year-old than it is for a 50-year-old. So we'll have to see what the numbers will show us.
So Melody, I'm going to bring you in a second to kind of ask your questions. What are you recommending to people right now who have kids who fall in the eligible age group? So Dr. Moore, I'll ask you that question. So what do you recommend to people who might have kids who fall in the eligible age group right now? Are you recommending vaccination, or where does the pediatric world stand at this point?
Well, in order to achieve this coveted herd immunity so we can get ourselves out of the pandemic and return to life as we used to know it, children will need to be vaccinated. How we go about that is going to be an ongoing discussion between pediatricians and the parents of the children they take care for. So we pediatricians will be promoting vaccines as long as they're safe and efficacious. And as of right now, it seems to point in that direction, that the COVID vaccine is safe in children and it's working, which is great. But I also want to keep the parents in the know that the door is always open for discussion. And there is a difference between vaccine hesitancy and anti-vaccine. And every parent has the right, and they really should, ask questions. And we are a very good source for to be able to answer those questions. But just because we would recommend it, and I on my end am wholeheartedly recommending it, I want my children to get it, I'm also want to talk about it with the parents and answer any particular questions that they have. The internet's full of mistruths. And so, having a one-on-one conversation with the parent or even an adolescent or younger child is also really important.
All right, so Melody, I want to ask you, you had some concerns when we talked earlier today. Essentially, you said you're cautiously optimistic, but you wanted to know more in terms of research or possible side effects. So maybe just ask some of your questions and we'll have Dr. Moore answer some of them. And also, I know there are a ton of you out there who are asking questions, so I'm sort of reading through them as we do this, and we'll try to get those your way. So Melody, ask away.
Okay, awesome. Well, the first question I had is, are they testing for children with the same, veracity as they did for adults? Are they fully vetting this vaccine for children, or are they just sort of rolling it out and we're the guinea pigs?
Absolutely. Do we make every single precaution when we were testing children in anything? Because we have a couple of being scientists who take care of children, we have to make sure that not only is what we're proposing safe, and we can only know that if we do trials, clinical trials, and we also have to make sure that what we are proposing works. And really the only way to do that is to enroll human subjects. And it is very difficult to pass this type of trial through an institutional review board, it's also known as an IRB, because of informed consent. As parents, we are giving consent for our children to be able to be enrolled in such a trial. So there's not only the safety, the efficacy, but also the ethical part of trying medications or vaccines or anything in children. So it does stand up to the rigors that we would have in adults plus some.
Okay.
Long-winded.
No, that's good. And how about so far, have they tested kids as much as adults, or are they just starting?
We are just starting. The Pfizer trial that I mentioned at the beginning of the segment of the 12 to 15 age range really only had about 2,200 children enrolled. So when we saw that 100% efficacy, it was really about 1,200 or 1,100 kids, which is half of that were actually received the vaccine, which ended up showing that they were not getting COVID-19 disease. So in that end, the numbers are a lot less than they are for adults. We do have some data from China though, with the Sinovac, which is the Chinese and COVID vaccine that they have there, where they are doing large studies with children over the age of 3 years. But in the United States, the numbers are still pretty small.
So Melody, I actually have a quick question for you, just to hop in here. You know, one of the things we kind of talked about is throughout this pandemic, sort of decisions among parents have been questioned, kind of like the mom shaming part of this. I want to get your perspective on that as far as whatever you decide to do, how are you going to kind of move forward and just be confident in your decision?
I feel like I'm asking the right people the right questions, and I'm going to make a decision with my husband that's best for our family. And what anybody else says is just their problem, not mine. And it's the same thing with that I nursed my son until he was 1. There were people that had a problem that I didn't nurse him longer. There were people that thought that I nursed him too long. And he slept in my bed while I nursed him because it was, in a bassinet next to my bed, because that was the easiest way for me to nurse him. And that was a problem for people. So for me, I feel like everyone is going to judge me and have a problem with something. And this is the health of my family, and I care about that. And I'm going to make the best decision I can in that respect. And everybody else can just deal with their own lives.
So, Dr. Moore, I have a question for you. As far as something I hear from a lot of parents is, and maybe we don't have the answer at this point, but masks and kids next year in school. Does a lot of that depend upon the vaccination efforts with children, or is it herd immunity's got to be at a certain level, the numbers have to be brought down? Can you kind of walk us through those decisions? And like I said, we may not know at this point for next year.
Yes, in order to reach herd immunity, children will need to be protected against COVID-19. The 20% of the population is going to need to be protected. And as a pediatric population in this country. So they are tied together. Once we achieve herd immunity, then it'll be a lot safer to let go of these social distancing and masking and all these precautions that we've been taking. However, it is very encouraging what the CDC has been reporting, that vaccinated people can be unmasked indoors with unvaccinated people of a single household, as long as there is no high risk person in that group. And that is really, really, really great news. It is the light at the end of this tunnel, and it is very exciting. But we still need to protect the kids, and we still need to cut that transmission down even more.
One of the questions I see that we're getting from a lot of people commenting and people I've talked to is side effects. We've heard from some adults, either the first dose or the second dose, more often or not the second dose, that they're getting side effects. Some sicker than others, but the fevers, the chills, the body aches, tiredness. Do we know how it affects children, or is the dosage going to counteract some of those side effects? Just some of those more medical questions for you.
Well, the side effects that are normally seen with any vaccination, but particularly the COVID vaccination, would be fever, headache, just kind of like not feeling well, fatigue, muscle aches. And we do see those side effects in a lot of routine childhood vaccinations. And a good way to think about it is like, yay, it's working, right? Our body's fighting against this bug. It's producing a memory against the bug that we're trying to avoid. So we are anticipating similar side effects with the same, with the COVID-19 vaccine. Whether or not it's dose dependent, don't know. It might just be how sensitive the person is to an immune response. Some people, nothing. I like to include myself in that crowd. Some people really got, pretty ill, but the side effects only last for a day or two, and there really aren't any long-term side effects. Now, what at the beginning of the piece, we heard a mom concerned, and I've heard this also in my practice and even talking to my friends and neighbors, about long-term side effects or complications, or however you want to phrase it, about getting the vaccine. And I think because the letters RNA are in the making of the two of the three vaccines that are approved or used under emergency authorization use in the United States are what we call messenger RNA vaccines. And I am more than happy to go into like how that works if anybody wants to hear about it. But it does not go into the DNA. It does not go into the genetic material. And what is being replicated, what the instruction manual is showing us, is that one particular little spike protein that the body recognizes as foreign, and then the immune response is produced from that.
What would you say to many people have concerns that the vaccine has just been developed too quickly? You hear that quite often. Is there truth to that? Is there not? How do you sort of ease parents' fears over that part of it?
Well, the technology behind messenger RNA vaccine has been around for about a decade or so. It has been used in trying to develop a vaccine against Zika, for example, against the MERS virus, the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome virus, among others. So I think the best analogy I have for this is the product was already there, and we just had it like expedited when we were able to put the genetic code of the COVID in it. So the technology was there, the safety was there, and all that the scientists really had to do is get the sequence of the genome of this particular virus and plug it into the already existing technology that was there, and that's how it got made so quickly. And then when the world and different governments were able to say, okay, let's put all of our resources and money and energy into the development and the distribution of the vaccine, that's why it seemed to go pretty quickly. But the science took a long time. And I want people to understand that it's the science that we need to trust, and that it's there, and the trials have shown it, and it's really exciting to be able to put this behind us.
Like an age-old pasta recipe, and it just changing the meatballs for the sausage.
I like that analogy even better than my Amazon analogy. Yes.
We have in the past couple of days, I did a story about a local partially vaccinated pregnant woman who, when she had the baby, they tested the cord blood for antibodies and they found those. So I assume as a pediatrician, you're probably also getting some questions on that front for newborns and vaccine and antibody, if that is true. So just kind of tell me what you're thinking on that as well. I know we have questions in this long line of comments about pregnant women and newborns.
So there are no trial data on the efficacy and safety in pregnant women and in lactating women, mostly because, like small children, they're usually at the end of the totem pole, when it comes to trials. But what we have seen is women who have opted to get vaccinated when they're pregnant, for example, had the same risk of miscarriage, stillbirth, all those end parameters, prematurity, than women who did not get vaccinated. So we have that data out there that it is safe for pregnant women. However, if an unvaccinated pregnant woman ends up getting COVID, their risk factor of having a premature birth or a stillbirth or a miscarriage is a lot higher than the other two groups that I mentioned. So we are seeing that it's safe and that it is efficacious in pregnant women, but we just don't really have the trials behind that to be able to make make a recommendation based on that. But gotcha. We are, if you're able to get the vaccine, it's a good idea. And we are seeing the immunity being passed on to the fetus and therefore the newborn. What we don't know is how long does that immunity last. And, is this going to only be while the rest of the, neonatal immunity is lasting for a couple of months post birth, or will this be a long-term immunity? We don't know that yet. And with lactation, what we're seeing is that the antibodies, and this is really exciting, that the antibodies of a vaccinated lactating mom is passing through the breast milk. And so that is also really great because we can give immunity to a baby who's breastfeeding without having to vaccinate them. Again, we don't know how long that immunity lasts, but it is exciting to see that they are getting antibodies through the breast milk.
Okay, and I actually have that story. We've got it queued up, so I think we'll play that, get a little reaction to that, and then we have a few more questions. I know there's hundreds of things people want answered, so let's watch this story first so people can have more of an understanding of what we were talking about with the newborn and the antibodies.
I had the opportunity to get it and protect myself and my family and my baby, and that's what I'm going to do, and that was my choice. And it's most important for people to talk to actual healthcare providers.
Mary Kate is a healthcare worker and received her first dose of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine in December, while 36 weeks pregnant.
As healthcare workers, we're always looking to try to help people any way that we can and, contribute to science and contribute to medicine. So this was a really good opportunity for me to do that. I have a lot of friends who are my age and are of childbearing age or trying to conceive or are pregnant themselves. And I felt like it was important for me to get it and to, spread correct information about the vaccine.
Her baby girl Addison was born in January, a week before her second dose. It's believed this local baby is the first born in the world with COVID-19 antibodies from a partially vaccinated mother.
As moms, we are already under a lot of pressure as new moms. We're just trying to do everything we can to protect our kids and our babies, and this was one way to do it, is, to get vaccinated. The science is behind it, and, potential protection for your newborn, you really can't beat that.
Her pediatrician, Dr. Chad Rudnick, describes the impact of this case study.
The opportunity that we had to share this information with our colleagues around the world was something that we knew we had to do.
What would you say to all of the naysayers out there?
I would say there's a lot of misinformation out there on social media, Facebook, Instagram. There's no risk of getting the vaccine. There is known risk of getting COVID. And for pregnant women, especially later on in your third trimester.
She says she has no regrets.
I'm thankful that she has some sort of protection.
She told me she had no side effects with the first dose, and a week after the baby was born, some achy joints and chills came with the second dose. Do you have any fears about future issues or anything? I mean, that's a question a lot of people ask.
I know, a lot of people have that as a question. The science behind the vaccine shows that it is safe. So that aspect of it, I'm not worried for her. I mean, she was born healthy. She's a growing girl, and I really have no worries.
She's now in close contact with the CDC. They're following her case and her newborn as well to try to gain new insight on the COVID-19 vaccine and pregnant women as well as their newborns. Tory Dunnan, WPTV News Channel 5.
So to kind of follow up on that story there a little bit, I think one thing that she touched on, which makes sense for a lot of parents, regardless of what their views are, is misinformation out there and talking with doctors. Dr. Moore, I mean, there is a lot of hesitancy. So do you feel like that herd immunity will essentially be reached involving kids, or how's the scientific community kind of tackling the hesitancy?
Well, to answer the first question, yes, I do think that herd immunity will be reached, and I do know that children need to be immunized in order for that to happen. How quickly it happens depends on the vaccine rollout in the pediatric population. In terms of the second, the vaccine hesitancy, I completely understand and empathize. And just because I understand the science behind it, and just because I have children of my own and I love my patients and what I do, I am quite enthusiastic about encouraging immunizations. There is no judgment on my end, and I can speak for most, if not all, pediatricians in that regard, that we understand that mothers today are being judged on every single thing, thanks to mostly social media. But we all want the best for our kids. I mean, that's the truth. And if the best for your kid involves you to ask more questions and to read a little bit more and to learn how to discern information from misinformation, then you are doing the best thing for your child. Whether or not it takes you a split second to make that decision, or if it takes you weeks or months to make that decision. And I respect that. What I do ask, though, is that people do have honest conversations with their pediatricians and with their trusted doctors in their life, so that they can come to the best decision for them and for their family.
Okay, one question that I just spotted is, should children with neurological issues get the vaccine? Do we know that yet?
Absolutely. They fall in the high risk category. So children with type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune issues, neurological issues, seizures, all of those children, morbid obesity also, all those children really do need to be vaccinated because they're at higher risk of having complications from a COVID-19 infection. So their immune systems work, the same as kids without neurological issues. And so it is recommended that they get it.
Another question I kind of see popping up here is, and I think this plays into the herd immunity thing, but maybe you could break it down more, is why should people get their children vaccinated if not all the time, but, not historically, hasn't been going on that long, but children haven't necessarily seen for the greater majority of the side effects that adults are seeing. So why should children get vaccinated?
That is a fantastic question, because you're right. We, at the beginning of this pandemic, were, biting our nails going, oh my God, kids get everything. And, in terms of like respiratory illnesses. And it was really heartening to see that children were not the epicenter of the severe cases. So in that regard, I do understand that. And children do not transmit the virus as much as adolescents and young adults and older people. But children will continue to be growing, and they will get to an age where they will be spreading it a lot more easily. Children, especially adolescents, also have higher risk behaviors in terms of socialization, and are not always the best at maintaining social distancing and mask wearing. So that will be another reason why we want to make sure that they get immunized. And also, for every kid that does pass it to somebody who can have some bad, side effect or complication from the infection, we would want to prevent that.
So I want to bring Melody back in and just I want to get your sense now. We did this story, and I feel like maybe perhaps you've heard more information. What's your gut telling you now, and what do you feel like you still need to see? I know your kids they're also younger, so you've got a bit more time to kind of weigh these decisions, but let me know what you're thinking.
Yeah, we have a 1.5-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So I have a little bit of time, but I'm wondering, do you think that this is going to be a yearly vaccination like flu, or will it be a one-time thing? Just a COVID shot once?
Well, we don't really know for 100% quite yet. The flu virus, influenza virus, mutates on a very regular basis, and it has different genetic drifts and shifts, the immunological terms that they use for the mutations. And it's a predictable thing that every year it mutates. The COVID-19 has had some variants, and it will all really depend on that famous little spike protein that's on the outer capsule of the actual virus as to whether or not we're going to have a variant booster shot, I guess, in the years to come. Still too early to tell. As of right now, it does seem that the variants out there are being protected with the COVID-19 vaccine. And I anticipated that it continues to work, but time will tell.
And do you think that there's any difference between the COVID vaccine and other vaccines if they're, medically fragile children that, sorry,
That's quite all right.
getting vaccinated? Should they not be getting the COVID vaccine as well?
Actually, if they're higher risk and medically fragile, they should be more inclined to be receiving the vaccine, just because their complication rate is going to be a lot higher than other typical children.
So, Dr. Moore, I have kind of the $1 million question, and I mean, I don't know that we know this, but we know that they're going to start trials in younger kids. I mean, how far off is a vaccination for really like babies, toddlers, 6, 7-year-olds? That still feels far from age 12.
It does. And these trials do need, as we mentioned in the beginning, these trials are pretty rigorous, and we follow out for a lot longer in children too. And we are going to have more arms of the trial with the younger children in terms of dosage. So what I mean by that is, let's say the dose for an adult will be 100 micrograms. Then in children, they'll be testing in 50, in 25, and in 100 micrograms to see where their efficacy rate. So you're going to have more of the denominator, right? So more children participating in trials in order to get better results. And it's still too early to tell. So I guess it depends on how many kids end up being enrolled in these trials.
Gotcha. I mean, I think you answered a lot of the questions. The comments, I'm sure, will continue to roll in, and we'll probably check back in with you as we kind of get more information on the vaccine rollout and involving children and, potential side effects or not. So thank you so much, Dr. Moore, for joining us. And yeah, thanks, Melody, as well, from the mom perspective, because
Thank you.
Melody kind of like hit it on the head. It's like no decision these days is the right one. It depends who you ask. So getting information and moving forward, I think, helps a lot of the parents out there.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're going to sign off now from this, but if you want, just continue to check out those comments. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.